So, hello, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I still haven't figured out a new abbreviation, I think it's called, isn't it? Like SDWT. I've talked about it in the last one as well. I do also hope that the audio is fine, because I have to carry or have it in my hands, the microphone today, because I'm standing. Standing desk, cool thing. I really appreciate it. It makes me feel better. It is a cool gadget. Let's call it gadget. The only thing that I have noticed is that long periods of standing, especially when you're not really used to it, it's actually not really easy. And I've then thought about like all of those teachers that I've had in my life, how they have been actually able to stand all day long. But yeah, anyway. It's a cool thing. Today we're going through a few Seth's blog posts. So you might know Seth Godin, author, marketer, and so on and so forth. Period. From the Seth's.blog site. I do actually have noticed that he's having a website too. That might be called Seth Godin, Seth's site. Or sethgodin.com. Anyway, the first one, in defense of the hard parts. Yesterday's post was a little glib. I don't know what glib means, but it was a little glib apparently. Without a doubt, we add more value when we focus on the emotional labor of important work, leaving others the chance to create commodities. But the repetitive, difficult nature of learning into commodity production can give us insight, humility, and skill. It helps us understand just how hard the hard parts are and creates an opportunity to bring innovation to the work to be done. Learning the skill and caring enough to show up to implement it again and again can give us the foundation to see what others might miss. Yes, period. For me, it's actually sometimes interesting that some people that do really not know the skill and do really not know what the whole thing is all about, often have really great ideas because they do not see those restrictions that one is having. And as I'm thinking about it, a recent video that I've seen of Wolfgang Brix, the founder of Grob Himmelblau, an architectural firm, might be based in Vienna, but might just only be operating one office in Vienna. I don't know. But he's doing a lot of sketches for some reason. Some people like sketches. Some people do not appreciate sketches. I think it is a good way to communicate ideas quite quickly, but then really soon going into the digital space just makes sense because you can do way more with what you've created or with what you are creating than with just the sketch. The sketch is just the initial point, just the initial thing that one has to, just do, I guess. But the point is, he was sketching some things, and he was talking about spaces, and he was talking about rooms, and also about having not the restriction of gravity and all of the other things that architecture has as restrictions, which is really interesting. So maybe also talking to some people that are not of the space, that are not really thinking of those things, really are not knowledgeable in these topics, might be interesting. Anyway, the hard parts and the important parts, which is actually the blog post that he was referring to from today's post. So let's have a look, I guess. The hard parts of what you do all day can feel fraught. It is heavy lifting, emergencies, dangerous labor, the stakes are high and the work can be difficult. The important parts of what you do all day are valuable to someone else. This is what you're getting paid for, solving a customer's problems. Or problem. A simple example. The important part of running a successful condiments business is getting shelf space for your ketchup, promoting it so that people are eager to buy it, and keeping the promise you make the distributors and customers. You make two that distribute as well anyway. The hard part might involve actually making ketchup, steam heat, heavy object supply chains. We can't run this business without the hard parts, but that doesn't mean we have to do it ourselves. The thing is, there are other people you can buy. What? The thing is, there are other people you can buy the ketchup from, and you can also expand what you offer to include things that are easier to make, but just as valuable to your customers. The important part feels risky. We might be afraid of it. It could require emotional labor, but it is not the same as the hard part. A trusted brand is important. Commodity products are hard. When we persuade ourselves that the hard part is also the important part, there is a small chance we have found the truth, but it is likely we are setting a trap that will keep us stuck. If you figured out how to do something important, don't muddy it up by signing up to do things that are hard. That is really true. Some things are hard and some things are important. As a lot of tasks that we're having daily, things that we essentially making ourselves do, are difficult maybe, but not necessarily important. And some other things, which reminds me of this last episode of the not named yet podcast, not fully named yet maybe podcast, where we've been talking about Tim Ferriss and his experience with suicide and also depression in general. And one of his tips of having a list, so productivity tips for people that are facing challenges related to depression. Having this one thing on your list that is really important and is going to make you really feeling good about yourself. And this one thing that is going to make you proud of yourself, and you should be doing this one thing, which just makes sense, at least at my point of view. Just do this one thing that is making you feel good. So there's one thing of your bucket list, essentially. And all of the other things might just be hard. By the way, I might not be the best at interpreting certain texts, nor am I really good at reading texts, but for me it is just a really good way to consume things that are good for my mind by also sharing those things that I think are good for the mind in general. And I've seen that Seth's blog posts really make me think about certain things, and also talking about these things aloud as I was talking to someone. This also makes me reflect on those things even more, and gets me to quite interesting places. And I've missed that, and which might be a call for thinking about periods of your life where you might have felt better or you might have felt worse, and thinking about what this might be due to or was due to then implement it again into your life, or just not implement it, or try to keep it out of your life, so to speak. Or something in between. Who knows? The paradox of lottery thinking. Tim Brownson points us to this recent poll of people in Great Britain. About 1 out of 4 people surveyed, of all ages, believed that they could qualify for the Olympics if they trained for the next 4 years. This is absurd. It is the very absurdity of it that makes it common. I could do that. It's easier to say when we are sure we can't. Even if we had the talents, the resources, and the time, the odds are so slim that it's essentially a lottery. We are off the hook, so it is easy to pretend. What could we do if we spent the next 4 years on it? We could write and publish a symphony, start a reasonably successful small business, make a substantial contribution to our community, improve our physical health, engage more deeply with family and friends, learn to juggle or play the piano. Someone is going to win the lottery, but it probably won't be us. Yeah, I actually do want to have a look at this poll. And the first picture that is there, and you might have seen it as well, is of, I'm going to butcher the names, I'm not going to read it, this Turkish shooter, Yusuf, might be Dikets, might be Dikek, who knows, I'm sorry. And there's this poll, 1 in 4 Britons think they could qualify for the 2028 Olympics if they started training today. This is in percent, I guess. All Britons, it's 27%. Even though we're having men 30% and women 25%. And how? 15% of the 65 plus year olds think they could make it into the team. 50 to 64 is 23%. No, this can't be percent, right? This would really be absurd. 25 to 49 years is 34%, and 18 to 24 is 39%. This is complete BS. This really is. Really doesn't make any sense. What the fuck? And there is even more detailed statistics in terms of archery, sprint, yada, yada, yada. Long-term selfish, which is the next blog post, by the way, because of me jumping around tubs. And yeah, everyone is selfish. We do things that increase our chances of survival, help us achieve our goals, and give us a story we can tell ourselves about our role in the community. But short-term selfish is something we try to grow out of. Short-term selfish runs a red light because we are in a hurry. It dumps waste into the river because it is cheaper than disposing of it properly. It cheats in order to win. But none of these things help us reach our long-term goals. None of them are resilient or reliable because when others also play the short-term game, we all lose. Short-term selfish is against the minimum wage, while long-term leaders understand how much value it creates over time. And long-term selfish seeks an environment where we are most likely to thrive. I want to read that again. Short-term selfish is against the minimum wage, while long-term leaders understand how much value it creates over time. And the long-term selfish seeks an environment where we are most likely to thrive. Multiple choice, the next one. None of the above is often the best option. We are regularly confronted with multiple choice questions. The foundation is already established. The options are already limited. Do you want this or that? I am actually a fan of single choice questions, or at least knowing how many choices I have to tick and then deciding which ones the ones are. Because it's just easy, period. But the real question is, the real question lies in the assumption that happened before you were even asked. When a developer brings you 6 website options, they are skipping over critical questions about structure, upkeep, user experience, and whether or not a site is the answer to your problem. When a bank offers you 3 choices on how to borrow money, they are almost certainly found 3 that benefit the bank. It is impossible to have a productive day when every challenge and question leads to a full-on brainstorming session, but it might be worth rejecting the multiple choice options when the outcomes really matter. When I'm designing something for clients, I also like to have multiple options. Which means just a few of them, and some are ones that I like, and some of them are probably ones that I do not really like, because I don't know what the client likes most often. Sometimes I do know, and sometimes I'm then getting some feedback that lets me think, wow, I actually do not get it. And so really quite often we're talking about B2B here, essentially, not necessarily B2C, even though I think in the end it's always going to be B2B, even if it's like a product or something. Anyway, the thing is, the people that are operating their business, they hopefully, I don't know, but they hopefully know their business quite well. and or the customer better than I know them. Of course, I can assume certain things and get certain things, and I know the methods of achieving those things, but sometimes I'm missing parts, sometimes we all miss parts, and then it is good to get the feedback and maybe reflect on what you've just done, and maybe redo certain things or change certain things and whatsoever. My point is having multiple choices as options, and then getting feedback and working on those options. Which, I mean, if I was a bank, I wouldn't do so either. Because of course I'm gonna pick or just present those options that are good for me anyway. Yeah, I mean, sometimes my design options are also good for me, and I'm probably not doing some things which might be a pity sometimes, that really take a shit ton of time. So in the end it becomes unreasonable to do for me and for the person that I'm designing for. But yeah, anyway. Mediocrity and perfectionism. I might actually have read that one. It is surprising to realize that they are the same. They are both places to hide. When we ship average work, it is not our fault. We are simply doing what the manual says, and if you don't like it, blame the culture and the system. And when we hold back on shipping because it isn't perfect, we are also hiding. We can blame us for refusing to sign off on something if we can find something or anything that could still be discussed or improved. If it doesn't ship, it doesn't count. The work is to establish a standard and then meet it. To ship it when it is good enough, which we get to define in advance. Don't ship junk, but ship. Which I think is essentially kind of a meta comment, also evolving the blog. The blog is every day for quite some time, and it's been this way. And I think it is really cool. And I've realized recently that I've actually also done the podcast daily for maybe 3 years, while missing probably like 10 days maximum or something. And in hindsight, or now, I am actually really proud of that. And everyone can be that is just shipping the work and is not really thinking about what other people might be thinking about this work, and so on and so forth. The overall outcome of shipping something every single day, the overall outcome of putting yourself out there is always going to be something good. Either you learn something, or you might be getting some inquiries, you might be getting some clients, you might be whatever the fuck. Of course, one could say it is a waste of time, but it makes sense to do it in a certain way, or to make it about something that you care about. So whatever this might be. And in the end, you are essentially having your hobby, and this hobby might turn into something more interesting. And this doesn't necessarily have to be a get-rich-quick scheme, because it's probably not going to be, and maybe there's never going to be some money in it, which is fine too, because it is a hobby, and it might be something valuable for someone else, or it might just be interesting to you, and it might just be your meaning in life. It might just be. It might be the whole thing about this. It might just be the sport or the topic or whatever. So doing something regularly often makes sense. And with that being said, I'm going to end this episode here and hopefully see you soon. So bye-bye.